So right now it seems like there's only two opinions on Bless Unleashed.
All women are queens. If she breathes, she's a god!
Due to the controversial past with Bless Online, Bless Unleashed has a very highly debated fan base right now. You have the people who absolutely hate Bless Unleashed because they hate Bless Online. And if you think otherwise, or anyone thinks that Bless Unleashed is a good game, they're the worst person in the world. And then you also have people who love Bless Unleashed, and they really, really enjoy the games. And if you think otherwise, you're the worst person in the world as well. So, me being a person who's never played Bless Online and doesn't really have an opinion on Bless Unleashed, I'm gonna go through and see if I can do as unbiased first impressions as possible. What up? My name is Astro, your resident MMORPG crack fiend, and I hope you guys enjoy this video. So let's start where everyone else starts, in character select. So in Bless Unleashed, you have 5 classes to pick from. You have the Crusader, you have the Berserker, you have the Priest, you have the Mage, and then you have Ranger. So the only one out of these 5 that can heal is the Priest. All the others are DPS. So the Crusader and the Berserker are both melee DPS, and the Ranger and the Mage are both range DPS. All in all, a pretty good selection for when the game just came out. The issue I have with the character selection right now is that based on the class you pick, that's the race you can choose. So some classes have only one race, some classes have 2 races you can pick from, but I kind of don't like that lock. But that's only one issue. Everything else is pretty decent. So let's get into character select. Character selection is actually really good. Once you've selected the race and class you want to play, you go through and you actually make your character, and there's so much in-depth detail that you can do to make your character look unique and cool. I made my character look like this, and honestly, I was really, really happy. Usually I don't really play like the small, tiny little classes. Like I don't even play Lalafell in Final Fantasy, but this was actually pretty cool, so I had to go through and make a character like this. Once you've done that, then you get thrown straight into the tutorial of the game. However, the tutorial of the game is actually putting you at level 40, and you get to test out the full class potential. So this is super great, as others have said, because it lets you test out all the classes just in case you want to try a different one. And you know, for me, as someone who is incredibly indecisive, this was actually great. After trying out a few classes, I decided to go with the Crusader because the classic sword and board can never go wrong. After you complete the tutorial, you're put into the story of the game, and the story of the game in the beginning was actually quite interesting. So you're setting up for a festival, you're making sure everything is going right, everything is super lighthearted and fun, and everyone is really excited for this festival. Then all of a sudden the bad guys attack and the mood changes completely. Everything is in chaos, everyone is on fire, people are dying. Spoiler alert, by the way, main characters die instantly, which is crazy. So in the beginning, I had a really great first impressions of the story. However, after all this chaos has struck, you're kind of saved and thrown out into a farmland, and from there the story got quite boring and I started to skip because I really was not bothered to pay attention. So in the beginning, quite a good story. However, as it goes on further, I just couldn't have been bothered. The quests then start to go into a fetch quest mode where you're just basically doing basic MMO quests, nothing out of the ordinary. Everything seems pretty normal here. I wouldn't say it's good, I wouldn't say it's bad, I'd say it's pretty average. What saved the questing for me was the combat, so let's get into the combat. So generally, as we all know, MMORPGs generally opt for the tab target option. However, Bless Unleashed tries to go for the action combat route, and the action combat route was pretty good. I actually really like the combat in Bless Unleashed. It's pretty decent. The animations are very nice, the attacks seem like they have weight, and you can combo very well in this game. The one issue I have is the animation locks. So sometimes when you do certain abilities, it locks your animation and it doesn't feel as great to do those abilities, but overall, I would say it's pretty good. Another really nice part about the combat is they spice up the auto attacks. So the auto attacks actually have different combos that do different things, and one can, you know, buff you up, one can do more damage, so it makes the auto attacks a lot more flavorful in my opinion. Another thing to note is that they tried to emulate Dark Souls combat with the dodging, so they have an iframe dodge that you want to use against monsters and bosses, and it adds a little bit more in depth to the combat because you have to make sure you're avoiding the telegraphed attacks from the enemies. So this makes the combat a little more interesting and a little more difficult. So I do enjoy that part, and it does feel a lot better because of that. On top of this, there's also another thing that I kind of liked. It was a very small addition, but I do like it a lot. It's that some abilities have two types of attacks. So one is your regular, you press the button, the ability goes off, boom, you do your damage, big deal, haha, right? But then also you can hold down the button and do more damage with a charged attack. Obviously, like I said, because of the Dark Souls type combat, it's more risky to do this ability because your enemy will hit you if you don't time it correctly, but it's more of a risk reward. If you dodge the ability of your enemy and then charge the attack, you could do more damage. So I think that's pretty cool. Bless Unleashed's combat overall, I would say, is pretty decent. And this is coming from someone who's a BDO player. So BDO obviously has some very great combat in terms of MMOs. Now let's talk about the graphics of Bless Unleashed. Honestly, I was very surprised with the graphics. They look really good. When I looked at the graphics of Bless Online, they looked so bad, and they've really stepped up their game. The one thing I will note is that the optimization isn't as great because they do put a lot of pressure on your PC, so it may not run the best, but there are settings to mitigate that. However, if you do run it on some good settings, it does look great. I did see some people complain about how the zones don't look that great, and they seem to be very, very similar and boring, which I never saw, because in the beginning of the game, you start off in a castle, a big city, and then you get tossed out into a farmland, like I said, which was a beautiful forest, and then all of a sudden you go into a red desert. So to me, those are all very different landscapes. So I don't know how people can say that the landscapes are bad. I actually really like them. That's really all I have to say about the graphics. They're nice graphics. Might have some trouble running it on full quality on your PC, but they do have some optimization settings that could mitigate that. Moving forward, let's talk about, in my opinion, the most important part of an MMORPG, and that's the group play. So this really comes down to how many friends you have, honestly. If you got one homie, you guys can do the 2v1 boss mode. If you got more than one homie, then you guys can do the 5-player dungeon or the 5-player boss battle. But wait, hold up. Some of you are probably like, Astro, I have no friends. What are you talking about? How am I supposed to do this? Well, lucky for you, there's a matchmaking system for all of this. So you can have your temporary homies and then they can leave you forever. So yeah, it's nice to see that they do have some group play options. You can do either these boss battles with one of your friends, or you can do it with a group of 5, and they also have dungeons. Some of these fights are actually quite challenging. I remember doing the first dungeon, queuing at it for level 15, and man, that was actually really tough for me. We kept dying over and over again, and the boss battles were quite tough because you have to dodge and there's mechanics and all kinds of stuff. There was one boss that just cast smoke and just went invisible, so we were looking around for this boss, and at the same time my HP was ticking down randomly, so it was quite chaotic, but very, very fun at the same time. Another really interesting point about this game is that as you travel throughout the world, you're gonna encounter boss fights. They're just random bosses placed all across the map that people have to fight together, and you get pretty good rewards for it. So overall, I would say that portion of the game is really, really cool. However, one of the bosses I had to do for a quest turned into a Twilight version, so it was a knockoff version of Karanda, if you've ever played BDO, which is a giant harpy lady, and then all of a sudden it turned into the Void Twisted version of that, and that was so tough as a level 12 to fight. That was so difficult. We were all getting one shot, and the fight took 40 minutes or something like that, and I needed to get this boss killed for the quest. So in terms of that, I would say that was not fun. It was not a great experience in my opinion, but the other bosses and the regular bosses are perfectly fine. Lastly, I want to talk about the monetization of this game and the cash shop. Bless Unleashed is currently a free-to-play game, so with that model, I'm obviously expecting the cash shop to have some sort of payment model in order for them to make money. However, when I looked at the cash shop, I was kind of shocked. First thing you notice is they have a battle pass, and I think that's totally fine. They have the regular version of the battle pass, and then they have the premium version of the battle pass. There's things that you can get in-game that you can get faster through the premium battle pass, but I wouldn't say there's anything egregious in there. There's mostly cosmetics and boosts and stuff like that. And then additionally, there are cosmetics that you can get for armor and stuff like that in the cash shop that you have to pay real money for. But where it starts to get weird is when you look at the mounts. So if you look at the mounts in Bless, they're based on rarity and how fast they can go with their sprints. So each mount has a different type of sprint based on its rarity. So the highest rarity is legendary, and they have 4 sprints. Meanwhile, the lower tiers might only have 2 or 3 or 1 sprints. So depending on the rarity, you're gonna have a faster mount. Obviously, you can get the faster mounts in game, but if you pay for it right off the bat, then you have the advantage. So that I personally don't like. Additionally, I'm not a fan of their premium status. Most of these free-to-play games do have some sort of premium subscription model that will let you kind of get some type of advantage for like $15 so they can earn some money, and that's fine. Like BDO has like a value pack and stuff like that, but you'd be paying $70 a month for these buffs that you get, and comparing it to someone who doesn't get those buffs, you're at a pretty big advantage. So that is something I'm not a fan of either. With that out of the way, I'm going to go over my final impressions about the game. So in terms of the combat, I think the combat of this game is really what shines through, as well as the group play, especially the fact that you can roam around and kill bosses with other people and get some really great rewards. Where this game kind of lacks, I would say, is in the story department as well as their cash shop. So depending on how you feel about that, this might be a game for you, this might not, but overall I think it's a much better improvement than Bless Online. Also, I'm sure you guys have noticed that I kind of skipped out on the PvP, and that's because I haven't got there yet. You have to be level 28, so I'm going to make a whole video on my impressions of the PvP of this game later. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, go ahead and smash that like button. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I do stream on Twitch every once in a while, so you can follow me on Twitch TV/Astro. If you want to see more content like this from me, I'll be doing more reviews, but I do generally do Final Fantasy content. So if you guys enjoyed this, thank you very much. I'll catch you guys next time.